Through some of the old files that I have a hold of, and I have a very incomplete version of the Glowtica. I found it. It's actually still there, and so like you can see, like I had announced it on the Graal online webpage. This is when they had taken Destiny. And it's so funny, like, there's people who are like claiming I was only a graphics admin. If you guys notice, like in my post, I was made a graphics admin of Unix Mad on Unix Mad server because everybody had different servers, right? If you had your own games, you had a different server. I was made the graphics admin after I already had my own game. So people who've been rewriting history, they're like, "Oh my god, you were just like into graphics and stuff." You guys, do you see how like manipulative and fucking deceitful that is? I was made a graphics admin. You can see it in this post here after they stole my fucking games. So I don't know if that was an agenda of theirs. I don't know if this is something they'd been planning where they were going to take all my stuff and then hack my websites, delete my files, hack my computer, delete all that stuff, and then just like make me out to be like a graphics guy. You know what I mean? Like, don't you think it's bizarre that like I created the most amount of content and like they're taking Destiny from me? I'm the first of official player world as they called it. And then I'm making Graal 2001, but like retroactively they start making me the graphics admin. What the hell is that? Like what's the point of that? It doesn't even make any sense on the Graal Classic server. So like this idea that like I was just some graphics guy, guys, I wasn't really even a part of Unix Mad's fucking crew. Um and the way people been trying to present it. I always was in on the in because I was like a Jesus Freaks member for a while, and like I had my own games and I was running Antago Gravity and stuff. So like people always knew who I was, and they were hacking me all the time because I was the biggest creator and I ran the Gravity Ring, and the Gravity Ring was the circle of creators. Um, so anyways, this idea that like I was some graphics guy, I was just like a graphics admin on Unix Mad server after I had already began making games and running Gravity and the Gravity Ring on Toggle Gravity and running my news sites and running other websites. This was like after it, and I was running Graal 3D and stuff and doing stuff like with Graal 3D and other projects. Like I was made the graphics admin on Unix Mad server after I had already done all these fucking things. So this idea, like that's who I was, is a pure lie. And you can see it in this post where like they're taking Destiny and they're shoving, we shoved it into the map. So you can see here's Destiny here, and isn't it convenient that like my clouds surrounding Destiny now, like the new Grawl like server has like clouds surrounding it. Um, you don't think that they snatched that from my map? Like so, I had the clouds surrounding Destiny on the map, and then you can see the underwater city here. And so like this is Glowtica, and it fits right in there. And you can hear in my post where I said Glowtica will finally be accessible. Glowtica is that big blue underwater Destiny country on the map. So there's not much to it in the files that I have access to. Because a lot of the content that I was working on got moved over to Graal 2001. It was supposed to be Glowtica, and then I was working on the Sky World, and the Sky World never even got released. And you can see how weird it is. Like Sky World, the Hyperflash was, and that's not the best name, but I had called it Hyperflash at the time. The Sky World was pretty weird. Like if you look at some of these characters, like you see this little weird thing here, and he flew around. Like he has like a little helicopter hat and he flew around. Like we actually have the boss levels, so you can access these boss levels. Because I found this download on my old hard drive that had been hacked on the archive.org. You can find the old bosses and you can play the bosses. So you can see that they were actually coded. The bosses were coded. These enemies, like these headsets, these are actual headsets now, like that you can wear. A number of them. They're from Hyperflash, like that headset right there too, and like this one. There was a yellow one too. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened to that one. I never got to finish the boss and stuff for it, but I did do the. So this was the Spade boss. So like the sky world, I'd been inspired by like the sky world from Bomberman at that time, and I had um wanted to create like a sky world where like characters were based off of like the suits of cards, which is a total ripoff, and I shouldn't have did that. But I never even got to release it. But the bosses are completely original, and so was the world itself. It was, but it was like I wanted to do something that was kind of ethereal and in the sky. So, anyways, you can look at um, the club boss. So this was like one of the club enemies. Oh god, I was doing that weird bevel thing on some of this. The enemies there. He looks so terrible. But this was one of the bosses too, and he flew around with like these helicopter ears that were like screws in the side of his head. And the boss for that is also coded. And the heart boss, who's a fucking complete weirdo. Like if you look at that, he's a total weirdo. Um, it's like this demonic conjoined twin who's like a double heart head, and the boss for that had been coded. So, and I had a bunch of levels and stuff going for it. I don't know how to get a hold of them, but I do have the boss levels, and just like at least the testing levels and the graphics and stuff for them, and you can find that on my old hard drive. So that would be fun to maybe show at some point. Where I'm at right now on this computer, though, is I don't really run Graal software on my computer. I don't want that shit on here. So, but I do have my simulation where I can pull up the .nw files, which is my code, my jest engine. So, anyways, in my post, you can see here that Glowtica is a part of Destiny, and it's the underwater part. So the idea of that was you were supposed to, like, especially with bombies, right? The bombies were supposed to, they had the boots, the shoes, right? Like the only thing that bombies had that was key to them was like the shoes. So like the boots were supposed to be a part of your player, and you could get like a bombie who's like a character. He's like your pet, and you could switch into your player. You could switch into him because I really loved, like, there was a game I loved called The Lost Vikings, and the idea was that you could get a Bomy Bop It pet. You could ride it around. You could do stuff with it. You could battle with it. And you could also play as it. So like you could switch into it, and it would give you access to different parts of the world you couldn't get to otherwise. Or at least tasks to do in parts of the world that you couldn't do without it. So like with the underwater world, like bombies, because bombies can't swim, they just skid across the surface of the water. And so the idea was you were supposed to be able to level up and be able to like control your body, the bombie across the water better. You could ride it. You could even ride the bombie across the water. You were supposed to be able to do that. And then like you could get all across, the Glowtica continent. So this is what it would have looked like, and there would have been a lot more other levels around this too. I had needed to plug in there, and the sky world would have showed up as a different layer that you could access in the map. And there would have been tons more stuff surrounding this. And even like down here, if you look down in the cliffs there, like there was supposed to be like a cliff world. I was going to carve those cliffs down, and you could like go down further into cliffs and like experience kind of like prehistoric stuff. So like Destiny, this was supposed to kind of be like an Acropolis, which is why it's called Destinopolis. This city here is called Destinopolis. I think they removed that sign, and they need to, like, that's fucked up because like Destinopolis is like the Graal. You know how like level 13 is like the Graal city of the Graal classic map. Destinopolis here is the center of Destiny, and unfortunately, because it got snatched and shoved into Graal Classic, people think that the entrance to Destiny is up here, and that's not true. Like this was supposed to be the heart of Destiny. But of course, in my game design, you wouldn't just constantly respawn in the center. I think that's bad game design. But this was the heart of Destiny, is Destinopolis, and so this was supposed to be an Acropolis. And so like it starts to go down underwater in some parts, and it starts to go down, and then there's the sky world where you can go even higher up into the sky. So like the idea of Destiny was it was supposed to be all about elevation. So like down in here, these levels were just suggestively inserted graphically. They're not actually created yet, but there was going to be a lot of like depth and cliffs, and like it's going to be like a cliffside world where you can go deep down into probably like underwater, or not underwater, but like lower level prehistoric wilderness with like Aztec and Mayan ruins and things like that type stuff. And so like all of this up here is really just an Acropolis. Like this, like Destiny is an Acropolis. This is why it's called Destinopolis, which is Destiny's Acropolis. So Destinopolis is the center here, right here. And so anyway, and that refers essentially to this was the heart of the Acropolis. And so anyway, you could end up going down underwater, but like with the underwater parts, which was going to give you different access to other stuff, I never got to create it all because I ended up having to put all of that onto Graal 2001. Um, anyway, bommies or whatever could help you like slide across water, and you could get to different parts and start to go down even lower. Um, if you needed to. So like if you wanted to go underwater, at least in the underwater parts, and of course like the wilderness stuff would not have been underwater, but at least this part was. And so like your Bomy has, they have like the shoes. So like the Bomy had like the little shoes. There's a reason why the Bommies had detailed shoes on their feet, is because you were supposed to be able to collect boots, not just for you, but also for your Bomy pet. And that could like you could switch into your pet and play as your pet in order to do other tasks and things that your human main avatar could not. And so the Bommies, you were supposed to be able to. I've never talked about this stuff with you guys because like I was just going to make it, but I feel like at this point, like it's been 10 years, and so I have been very evasive and elusive and not showing you guys a lot of proof, and I haven't been telling you a lot about what things were and why they were. And there's a reason for that, is because I wasn't sure when or how I was going to deliver it, if I was just going to like make it myself in a different engine. And so I just never wanted to talk about it. But I feel like at this point it has been 10 years, and it's like I am making my own engine, and I'm, doing music and all kinds of other stuff that I've been wanting to do. I just don't care to keep it a secret anymore. So I'll just like tell you guys some of the stuff that I was visualizing, because I had a lot of ideas, a lot of stuff that I was working on. And I just never got to do it because like Unix Matt stole my stuff and banned me from the server so he could keep it. And like I could never implement it. And they chopped it up and did what they wanted with it, which is a mutilation and perversion of what it actually is. So like this is actually an Acropolis. Destiny's an Acropolis. And like this, sorry, my video thing got cut out. Anyway, so like this is an Acropolis, and the underwater part was just one tiny level as you started to go down. There were going to be many different clever ways. So like ideally, this would likely be like different like shaped cliff sides with waterfalls coming off into different directions and rivers and things, and it would cascade and descend down into many different cliffside layers. So like I never got to do that because of how things panned out. And so there's definitely a huge part of me that is like so just disgusted and angry by it, because the vision that they had is not what it was. And when they just stole everything, like for one, that puts like a bad, like as a child, like I feel like what I was creating was clever and creative. I never got to finish it. And as an adult, I could do it 1,000 times better, especially with all the money they stole from me. Like, you take the money that they fucking stole from me and the royalties they owe me for decades. Like, the way that, like, Destiny could and would be is magnificent. It'd be magnificent because, like, I've got skills now after, like, as long as I've lived in my life. I've got tons and tons of more skills and experience. But what I was creating at the time, I think, was, interesting enough for a child's prototype, you know what I mean? So like ideally this would have been like little cliff sides and it started to get covered with water, but then like as the cliff sides like lower down into cascades, there'd be like waterfalls with like pools and things, and then like it would be dry land again and different cliffs there, and like they would cascade down into like rivers down into the jungles and things like that. So like there would have been a lot more going on there, and other like I'm not going to give everything away because I don't really want to, but like I can just like prove to you guys like some of that stuff is what I was working on. Let's see here. Let me see here. I might be able to find it. I do have. I was work because I'd continued working on this, guys. Like even though they banned me, like my love for it never ended. I just like disappeared because of all the pedophiles and predation and all of the lies and the attacks on my character. Like I remember, and it takes like I come from abuse, so you guys understand. I come from abuse. I was abused my entire life, severely abused by my family. It is very difficult to get me to cry. Uh, for like my dad used to slap me around. Like my brother used to like fucking torture me. And then like one time in the kitchen, my brother had attacked me, and I remember I was screaming and crying, and I was telling my dad like that I was sick of being attacked by my brother, and he pinned me against the fucking wall with the angriest, ugliest look on his face, and he told me it takes two to tango, and he kept smacking me as hard as he fucking could, and he said, "Don't you ever fucking cry again." He's like, "Did your brother attack you?" I was like, "Yes, he did." He's like, "Shut up," and he would smack me as hard as he could again, and then I would cry, and he would like cry again. He'd smack me as hard as he fucking could again. And so like it happened over and over. And my stepmom was looking at the whole situation. Everybody's watching me in the house laughing at me. And she's laughing at me like I'm doing something evil because my brother beat me up and I'm crying as my dad is beating me. And they're all screaming at me and shaming me and telling me that my brother attacking me is his right to do that. And I'm not allowed to cry ever again. Um, and I think what happened was my family knew that they were abusive, and because of things with like the divorce and stuff, it got to a point where like my dad didn't want, because my stepmom got in trouble for like hitting me before, and like my neighbor was like, you know your stepmom's not allowed to fucking touch you. And so I think my dad and her like conspired to just like start abusing me more, but using him to do it so that like she wouldn't get in trouble from other fucking people who were like friends of our family. And so like he wanted to get to a point where I would never talk about abuse and I would never cry ever again, which was another form of exposing abuse, right? Like if you're being abused by your family and you're crying and you're telling people about it, they're more likely to believe you if you're crying. So like they wanted to torture me and make sure I never cried ever again. So like I'm telling you, it's very difficult to get me to cry because I was forced from a very young age to never cry. And so like one day, just after years of being abused in the Graal community and being sexually harassed and abused and tormented and having my files stolen and having people just gawking at my family, my privacy life, and stealing my files and stuff, they were just like attacking me like on my own. Like Graal 2001, Unix Mad and Stefan took it and started hosting it. So all of their evil little minions came on the server and like they were paying to play my games. And then they're on the server saying, "Why is Antago in here? Get him, or Antago in here. Get rid of him. He's a fucking piece of shit. Nobody likes him." And I remember like administrating my own games while like Stefan and Unix Mad are stealing my money, and I'm doing the work and I made the games and everybody is cursing me. They had just hacked me, stole all my files. They're like sexually fucking harassing me even more than they had been before. And they're saying nasty stuff to me all over the place. And there's people who are like paying customers, paying to play my game, telling Stefan and Unix Mad to ban me from my own property as they were taking the money and using my money to invest in cybersecurity and in servers. So like I just remember one day I broke down crying, and that's impossible. Like I never cry. And it didn't make any sense to me, and I just thought there was just something inside of me that said, "You have to go. You have to get out of here and never come back." So like that's what I did. I tried, and it was difficult. Like every day I thought about Graal and I thought about my games and everything I was planning on doing. So I continued to work on this stuff in the meantime, and I continued to think about it, and I went to video game design school. I didn't have money to go to school, and I lived out in the middle of the country, and I had like this car that broke down all the time because my mom, there was a woman who died in our family and she left a couple cars behind, and my mom gave me like the shittiest car that kept breaking down, and she would never pay for it. I had to pay for everything and I had no money. So like I couldn't use that car because I'd get stranded, and she didn't care. She just, nobody cared, nobody would help me. So like I was walking to school one day, which was like, that's like I don't know, like a 4-hour walk. It was a long walk. And somebody like, there was a dude who was standing out there, and I just happened to have $10. And I never had money, but I just happened to have $10. And he was like, had his garage open. His name was Dallas. I was like, I didn't even know who he was. And I was like, hey, do you have a bike? a bike to sell? And he's like, yeah, actually, yes, I do. He's like, and I'll sell it to you for exactly the price I paid for it. And I was like, well, how much? He said $10, and that's all I had magically had in my pocket. So I threw him the $10 bill, and I had this a bicycle that I rode to school. It was like an hour and a half there and an hour and a half back, and I did it in the rain, I did it in the sunshine, I did it in the snow, and like I carried bags of books to college, and I went to college for years, and like for video game design, and I had increased my skill sets more, and I made the dean's list multiple times. So like I had made the dean's list multiple times because I had already been making games as a kid. Um, and like, hold on, my battery's dying again. At some point, I'm gonna have to grab a charger. But anyway, for now, yeah, I was sorry, I'm just looking around to see if I have one in here. I might have to go to the other room. But anyway, I don't want to get distracted. I was going to school, and I made the dean's list, and I had rewrote the syllabus once for like one of the teachers because like the syllabus sucked, and then give me a better one. So I gave her a better syllabus because I had been making games since I was 12, and she loved it, and that was the new syllabus, and everybody in the class had to follow that syllabus. I couldn't afford the books, like all the money that I would get, I would try to put in the car, and I was getting scammed by these car salesmen. So like I took the books, the money that I had that was for books, and I spent it on the car, and it never got fixed. So I kept riding my bicycle to and from school, and like I still managed to make the dean's list over and over and over again, because I just knew the material. I didn't need the books. And the teachers, I don't know, like I think the teachers knew that I was smart because I remember like everybody else had to use the books and I didn't. And the teachers would say things like, "Well, he just seems to know the material, so I'm not going to yell at him for not having the books." And so like I got away with it, which was nice from the compassion and goodness of smart teachers. And so that was good, and also a little something anyway. But anyway, so this is like one of the things I was working on, and you can see, and this was like from let's see. Yeah, like several decades ago. I was working on this, and it was like going to be, and I was trying to increase my skill sets and trying to study other game designs, under other game like graphics and things like that, and try to figure out how to get better as an artist. And so like what I wanted to do was just create like these cascading palaces and cliffs and stuff, for the jungles and things like that. And that was all supposed to be a part of Destiny. And there was all kinds of other stuff I had been working on. But anyway, like I never got to do that because they just took everything and chopped it up. So anyways, like what I ended up doing here was they took Destiny, they chopped Glowtica out, and Glowtica ended up winding up in the old levels packs, but it's just like it was never finished or fleshed out. It's supposed to be blue and underwater, so it's supposed to be like underwater effects and seaweed and stuff like that, and bubbles and things like that. And you would like your Bomy would have to get gravity boots so that they could sink, which is why like Bommies skid across the water. There's a reason like these things are happening. Like the Bommies are supposed to skid across the water, and they can't really swim. They just slide across water, which is good for like fast water travel because there was supposed to be a lot of underwater stuff and a lot of like cascading things and just like beautiful jungles and old temples and ruins and like magical stuff everywhere. So like the Bommies, and a lot of the stuff like you're seeing here, this is just like old preliminary stuff that I had worked on. You have to start somewhere. So like things have to start, like they have to look dumb first before they get better, right? And let me just show you an example of that. Like, how about here? Cast original. So if you look at my original cast here, if I can find them. So like these are the original cast This is my original cast of cartoon characters. The ones if you've ever seen the ones on like Graal Reborn from like this Kickstarter project, that was just like another version of them. And it's like they're not even like this was the first version of them. And then I had redid them trying to study cartooning, and then this became the uh, oh, this right here was the first one. So those was kind of like the second version on the Kickstarter project. And I was never happy with the first one completely. Although I actually really like these. There's something really charming about these. I've never stopped liking them. But these, I just wanted to keep remaking them and seeing if I could make them more creative. And so that's what I do. And it's the same thing with Destiny and this stuff. People are like, oh, you just suck and look how terrible it is. You guys, this was a starting point from a 13-year-old. Like if I had decades of control over my content and they didn't like block me out of the engine and steal everything and lie about it, and they didn't steal all my money, like, do you think that this is what Destiny would look like today? No, it'd be like all the stuff I'm talking about. It would be like it'd be in the game. This stuff would be beautiful. It'd be 3D in 3D. It'd be an awesome like rendition. It'd be super stylized. Everything would be extremely fleshed out. This is just an old prototype, ancient quote unquote ancient prototype of my game. So like you start somewhere. Graal, to me, the Graal game engine is nothing more than just like a cheap, primitive prototype for game designers. Like you start with Graal and then you move on to bigger stuff. I just was never able to because everything that went down with these people, where they just stole everything and started lying about it and chopping it up. So like this is just like a prototype. So like if you look at for example, look at these cartoon characters. This is like the first prototype of the cartoon characters. And this had come a long way. Like the very, very, very first rendition of them was really junky, and I did a lot to make them look. Let me see. I don't know if I have it. That's the short version. Yeah, I might not have it exactly accessible right now, but I could probably show it another time. The very first version of them was not even this clean, but this was like them as I polished it up. And so if you compare that to this version here, do you see how different that is? Like, look at this. Right? Like, look at this. Hold on, let me close this fucking stuff. It's so annoying. I have so much stuff here. Oh, ignore that. Holocaust denial. I can't find it. Hold on, this is getting annoying. Where the fuck were we? Is this it? Oh, here we go. Yeah, if you look at this and you compare that to this, do you see the difference in quality here? And so you have to start somewhere. So if you look at this, for example, look at this girl, right? See the girl with the hoodie and the pink hair? So compare the original version of her to the final version of her. It's a world of difference. It's a world of difference, the quality level. You flesh it out and you make it professional. So you have to start with a prototype somewhere. Same thing with this character. This is him, and this is like his, most recent kind of incarnation. And you look at her, the woman here with the orange hair, and here she is here, holding a weapon. So this is her here, and this is her here. So you got to start somewhere, guys. Give me 1 second. So you look at the quality comparison there. And this should tell you the difference of a prototype versus a final version. You look at this girl here compared to her, And you can see it's the same character. It's just like here she's much more detailed and has a lot more character to her. You take a look at these two characters here, the twins, and here they are there. If you look at them right here, and here they are here. So you take the prototype and you make it into something extremely professional. It's the same thing with her. Like, take this girl here. I'm telling this is going to relate back to the Graal thing in a second. You take this girl here. Here she is, this little, diner girl with this like apron on, and she's got the purple and stuff, and the ponytail. And here she is as a waitress, a vampire waitress. You start with a prototype, and you come up with something that is more interesting in the end. So you have this little astronaut here who just wears underwear, and he's in a helmet, and then you end up with this astronaut who is just wears boots, underwear, and a helmet. And the difference between the two characters, it's the same character, but look how much better it is, right? And look at this girl here. So this is her. Here she is here with her, her blue jeans, her black armbands, her shirts, and she ends up like this. You take this guy here with the green shirt, and here he is here. He's just more interesting than he was before. And you can go on and on with all the characters. You can look at her here, this girl with the red hair. And here she is, looking like a weird zombie girl. So you take what you've got, and the same thing with this black guy here who's, super suave, and he's got the weed on hand, and, the glasses, the sunglasses. And here he is here where he's far more interesting, and he's like a ghost, and he's got, the weed, he's smoking the weed and stuff. So, like, you don't stop at the fucking prototype. The sad thing about everybody in the fucking Graal community, I mean, and look at this thing here, right? Look at this little cat down here with the bones. And here's the cat with the bones now. Do you see him here? Look how much more interesting that is. And the fox, this fox here just ended up becoming this ghost fox, and he's cute. So, like, you don't stop at your fucking prototypes. What the Graal community has done is they've lied on our fucking names. They've stolen everything they fucking felt like stealing. And, like, they don't want people to know that Graal is a game engine and that it's a prototyping tool for professional artists. So this right here, this Destiny stuff that I'm talking about, guys, I don't think that this is fucking world-shattering creative stuff. I think it's intellectually protected. It's protected copyright that took a massive amount of time to create. And I did it in 1999 through 2000 and 2001. And this was before things were being auto-generated, before AI. And this was before, like, modern machines. Your computer was crashing all the time. It was hard to get things. Like, you could barely, like, have enough space on your computer to save stuff. And people were hacking you and all kinds of things. So, like, working on that prototype took a lot of work in 1999. Do you think that looking at my computer or looking at my cartoon characters, right, being compared here, ignore this stuff. I just have random stuff open. I can't find anything ever. Do you think that looking at, like, the difference in these characters as they evolve over time, you really think that this is it? This is what Destiny is? This is what it's supposed to be? No, this is what happens when people who aren't game designers steal a prototype from an actual professional like myself. It just stays there, stuck in prototype land, in my imagination. And what I see in my imagination is not this, but you have to start somewhere in your prototype, and then you start fleshing it out more and more and more. It takes a lot of time to take something from your imagination and make it real. What we're looking at here is just a snippet of what Destiny actually is. In truth, this is just a fraction of a prototype that was robbed and used to make Stefan and Unixmed look they're illegitimate, to make an illegitimate duo of thieves look legitimate. So they take massive amounts of content from kids and upcoming fucking like professionals, and then they shove it into their stuff, and they steal credit for it, and then they ban the people they robbed, and they tell their community that person's a problem, and they foster an environment where people are bashing the creators, and that's the narrative, so that nobody ever fucking calls them out, so that nobody ever cares or calls out what's happening, because all they care about is this fake narrative that's being fed to them. This is not the end game of Destiny. This is just a tiny prototype a child built, and I think that's a fucking phenomenal prototype. To me, Graal Online was just like a prototyping engine for kids who had interest in making something professional, and I would continue to evolve my world over time, and it would be like far more interesting and more professional and done in 3D and evolving over time. And so anyways, I had been working on stuff. I showed you, I had like these temples and stuff like that was also supposed to be part. There was a lot going on there. I don't want to go too deep into all that stuff because it's impossible to explain it all to you. But there was stuff I'd been working on, and like it's just like a child's prototype. So anyway, they ripped my prototypes up, which was like it was playable. You could play it, and they shoved it into their fucking map because their map sucks, and it was just mostly a clone of Zelda. As Stefan, copied Zelda 3. And then he started like changing some stuff and juxtaposing other people's content into it to try to make it look original. I always, of all this stuff in Graal Classic, I always thought like Avalon, Destiny, and the concept of Destiny and Glowtica and stuff in Graal 2001 was like the most interesting. I thought Avalon was beautiful. It is beautiful. I really like Avalon. But anyways, so like they needed to look like a game publishing company, but Stefan and Unixmed don't make games, and I don't know if they didn't have time to, or they're just not creative enough, but they needed to steal it from other people. So like that's what's happening there. I'm talking about it here. I never got to flesh it out. Some of the prototypes of it are available still. And these are, it's not underwater. Like you can't see the blueness of it because this is just my engine where like it doesn't have like the blue coloring effects, and I don't have like all the original files. But like one of the original just like, and there's nothing going on here because what happened was everything that was supposed to be going on in here and adding stuff to the sky world and stuff was put into Graal 2001 and stuff instead. So it was all supposed to be a part of Destiny, and it was supposed to be part of one big project with the sky world and things, which you can see I had bosses and all kinds of stuff going for them. They're really cool. The sky world was so cool, but like that was also like needed a lot of work to it. So this is supposed to be blue. Everything's supposed to be blue and underwater. And all of these tiles I had to lay by hand. So this is just like an early prototype of Glowtica. I found some of the levels, and it's just an early prototype. And you can see like all of this stuff. Like it took forever just to create the prototype because this was before things were being auto-generated. This is when you had to lay everything by hand. So like what I did was I had gone through and I had created a generic prototype of this particular underwater aspect of Destiny, and it should be blue. Everything should be blue here. The problem, I'm just going to show you what some of the remnants of the files are, and this is just outdated junk. I don't know what's going on here. I have no idea what you can see. Like it was just under construction. And so like you walk through and it was just like, a giant village and stuff. And there were supposed to be things you could do in the houses. And ideally in the houses, you could probably go underwater the houses. Like you could probably go in their basement and there'd be caves. And then you could go down the caves and get down into like, hidden mystical places within the jungles that are like down inside the cliff sides and ancient ruins. So this was just like a submerged city on the Acropolis. This was just ruins of the Acropolis. And unfortunately, we never got to do that. So like what happened was a lot of the content that was supposed to be put inside of here ended up getting put inside of Graal 2001 instead. But the at least the outdoor early like under construction prototype, I found those files. I found some of them. They are in an old levels pack, and you can see there's nothing in here. Like this is literally just like the generic, just like layout of the outdoor prototype before. And I didn't even have. We weren't even able to put details into it. We weren't able to put like, you know, cliffs and interior stuff and quests, and tie it to the other outdoor stuff. Like I said, this is supposed to be. This is just the underwater like submerged ruins on top of the Acropolis, and then the water is supposed to cascade down into cliff sides. So Destiny right here is technically just an Acropolis, which is why there's clouds and stuff too. Like Destiny isn't. That's why, like, if you look at the old files, you can see like at the center of Destiny, which like this is the highest point of Destiny. You can see like the cliffs go up and they go up into a peak here. This is called Destinopolis. This is the highest peak of the Acropolis. So Destiny is technically supposed to be an Acropolis. It is an Acropolis. It was never meant to be like, you know, this big southern part of the map. And this underwater stuff, which is supposed to be ruins that on top of the Acropolis, and there'd be waterfalls cascading down into jungles and all kinds of stuff. And then you would use your Bomy to like slide across the water to get to various parts that you needed to get to. And then he could put on his gravity boots, or your player would put on the gravity boots. And then you could go down into the water, and like there'd be a lot more stuff going on in the water. And then you could go into the houses, and there'd be like caves and stuff again. Oh my God. So anyways, yeah, so you're supposed to cascade down in there. There'd be like cliffs and underwater like ruin stuff inside the houses. Like you go through caves to get down into the prehistoric part of the lower world. But this was all just like an Acropolis, which is why there's clouds and things surrounding it. I don't want to go too much into that. But yeah, so like what happened was, you know, as they hijacked this stuff, instead of being able to flesh out the Glowtica parts and adding, you know, all the details and adding all the stuff and the quests and stuff and tying it into the other world around it and the sky world and all this other stuff, and then like, you know, perpetually redoing all the graphics and all of the landscapes and things and making it more interesting and different game engines and stuff. It just didn't happen. And so Stefan, you know, they stole it, they chopped it up, they lied about what it was, and I got moved into the Graal 2001 FTP, which was it was Destiny Continued. It's Destiny Part 2, which is, you know, it's called Bomy Moon, which is like, and Bommies were a part of Destiny. So you're supposed to have your Bommies, and you could put like wear the gravity boots and go down into the water and do different quests. These were supposed to be, and I don't know how much got lost because like I ended up, my video stopped and restarted. So let me just reiterate it. If I already mentioned it earlier in the video, let me just say it again. Yeah, so these were supposed to be just ruins on top of the Acropolis that were like submerged underwater. But this was still supposed to be like at the peak of an Acropolis, like, you know, almost like a mountain, like the peak of a mountain. And so there's clouds and things like that, but not as high as a mountain. It's just an Acropolis. And so like these waters and stuff, this was just like ruins that are like a little bit older than these ones. So it's older than this, and it started to flood and get submerged by water. But then there'd be like cliffs that like, you know, surround here, and then those drop down into other cliffs, and there's like layers and layers of cascading stuff, and like these waterfalls start to pour off, and like there's old ancient temples and stuff down below and all that other stuff. But these were ruins. These were supposed to be ruins. I just laid the prototype, and it took forever to lay that prototype, guys. Like, we didn't have a level generator like we do today. That didn't come until the fall of 2001. So, like, what happened was I had come up with the idea for the NPC server. I had finished Destiny, and I started, like, working on Glowtica and Hyperflash. And you know, like, thinking about the different concepts and stuff, what I needed to do. And I started creating creatures and stuff for it, and the Bommies were supposed to be a thing. And like I showed Stefan my Bomy, like you guys can see some of the other bosses I was working on, like for Hyperflash. That's like the tip of the iceberg. I was doing tons of stuff. Like those bosses are fucking super dope. The sky world was so cool. Too bad you missed it. It was like an ice. It was icy. It was like an ice world. But anyway, there was going to be this underwater world. It was supposed to be. I just never got to put the detail in there. So what you can see, like in this old, like prototype here, this is without detail. This is supposed to be blue. It's supposed to be underwater, and these would have ended up being cracked and like partially exposed. And like I would have like changed the shape of the houses. They needed to be changed up and stuff. And then you go into the houses, and there'd be like broken like bricks and things laying around everywhere, and like different like weird underwater enemies and things. And this is just supposed to be like part of the Acropolis, where like it's a submerged ruins, which is like an older part of the Acropolis city. So like that never got to happen. As I got pushed into Graal 2001, it's because I had created so much stuff that Stefan and Unixmat just decided they were going to steal my entire life. I didn't know they were doing this. So like, because I was too young to understand. I was too much of a kid, I should say. I was just immature. I didn't understand. Not even immature. I just didn't understand. I was a minor, and so like when I had created the Bommies, they were like, first it was supposed to be a walkable, playable character, and like Darkman had coded the walking enemy for me for it. So like I showed him the Bommy, and I was like, here's my Bommy. I was like, I'm gonna have these walking around. I was like, I'm gonna have it coded and stuff, so like they're walking around the levels and things like that. And then like Kyle0654 wanted to make them playable and stuff, as he was doing the coding script for it. And so like my agenda had morphed into what I was doing with my creature was, it's going to be like this playable thing you could switch through, like, like the Lost Vikings for Sega Genesis, if you've ever seen that game. And so like you could switch between characters, and your Bommy would just be like one of your pets. It was like one of your tools, and you could switch and play as your Bommy, and you could like put different boots on it, and you could sink down into the water. So like you could skid across the water and sink down in there, with the gravity boots, and you could get down underwater instead of like skidding across the water. And Bommies, and because Bommies are like kind of like mollusks of sort, they're like, kind of like these prehistoric type or like shell type creatures. They're almost like crustaceans a little bit, I guess. They can, live underwater longer than humans can. So like there was ideas and concepts being worked on for that. So Stefan didn't want me to have Destiny anymore. They had already made a decision to steal it. And so as I was making the playable character, I'm telling, like, me and Kyle0654 are telling Stefan about, because Kyle was coding it for me. Kyle was a really good coder. And so like we're talking to Stefan and saying, hey, like, this is not working in the engine. We need this. You need to change this. So like the Ganny system, the animated Ganny system came because of Bommies. Like we needed a way for, Stefan created a piece of software where we could have animations that were more consistent with the playable Bommy. Because like you couldn't do it at that time. They were very weird. They were just like, it was very gimmicky, and it just couldn't be done in a way that was professional. You couldn't really change the player's animation. You had to hide the player and overlay the animation, and then like run like these timers and timeouts that changed the animation based on the timer and like the step count. And it was really, really just not working with with G script at the time. So like the Ganny system was made for Bommies originally. And he was working on the NPC server for my animals. It was also made for Bommies. The animal, it's called A Sector. And like, it was, I needed it for my birds and stuff that was going to be in like Sky Worlds and things. And for other creatures I was working on. So like, I can probably show you some of them. Let me see if I can find one. Like, and there were many, many creatures I had been working on. It wasn't just Bommies. So like, for example, there's this thing here. It's like, it has like these horns and these claws. I lost some of the graphics for it, but I had it like like I think I had the side view and the back view for it, and I lost that. I don't know where the files for those went, but yeah, this was one of the creatures. You can see it had like it crawled around with its arms, and then like it had like a snake body tail that could grow. So that was a super cool weird creature. It was called the Lobrum, and so like that's. And you can see like it's an old, like the graphic style is kind of ugly because I made it as a child. But anyway, so like there was a lot of weird stuff that was going to be in the world. And so the A Sector was being kind of made for that. And as things were like, coming out, Stefan had realized that the game engine, with my help and with my ideas and innovations and stuff and with my games, it was going to be something they could sell. So him and Unix Matt saw, like, I saw tools to make what I'm making. Stefan saw dollar signs and a child to rip off. So like, that's what was happening there. And so like, I got pushed onto Graal 2001. I was never able to flesh Glowtica out. And like, all of the time that I was supposed to be spending on Glowtica and adding new like levels and things and like cliffside worlds and things into, that go down and descend from the Acropolis of Destiny and carving Destiny out and making even more, I never got to do. And of course, like over the past several decades, even as an adult, like this junky little thing you see here made in Graal Engine would have been done in 3D, especially with all my money that they stole and invested in themselves instead. Yeah, they didn't create anything. They just did nothing. Like, look at this shit that Stefan and Unix might have done for decades. They've never made 3D games. They've never made, like, all kinds of different stuff for it. They just continued to keep the engine as it was, milking the stuff like a cash cow. So, like, this was supposed to evolve into, higher 3D versions and better graphics and better, like, different renditions of it with, better refined characters and systems and mechanics and different game engines and things like that. And this would have been for console and for multiplayer mode and stuff and standalone applications. I just couldn't do it because they took it all. So like, as I was working on Graal 2001, like the stuff I was doing for Graal 2001 was supposed to be for Destiny. Like, Stefan had created a new tool that was like a map generator, and this was not used for Glowtica or for Destiny or for anything else I was working on. So like all of this stuff I had to lay by hand, and it took forever to do. So like when the level generator came out, we were able to just like draw a bunch of bullshit with like an MS Paint, and then like the level generator would turn it into levels. So like we sketched up this nonsense fucking image and just like generated the map for Graal 2001, and it was like so big and so dumb and so empty that like it took me forever to start fleshing stuff out, that by the time that like we even released it, it wasn't even fleshed out. Stefan wasn't doing any of this. Like I'm telling you, like Stefan's taking credit for stuff. He didn't do any of it. He was just working on the engine and taking my ideas and coding things into the engine that he thought he could market, but then he realized his engine was not marketable. He had to steal the games and sell the games instead. So like I'm sitting here making these games and he's like stealing it and like taking credit for it. So like Mountain Tora is named after me. You can see my name like the entrance where it says like Ogatna, which is Antago backwards. Let me see. I don't know if I have those graphics on here. I probably don't. I don't think I do. But they're in there. You can see like my name on like, I don't know. And there's stuff that even got lost too. And it just takes forever. It takes way too much time to see. That's my owl. That's like all of the stuff you saw in Graal 2000. Like that was my fucking stuff. Like Stefan didn't do any of it. The first NPC that had ever been in the NPC server was Manny the policeman. That's my policeman, and he's Manny. Manny is he was named after the same character I put in the Gravity Boots quest, who was named Manny on Graal Classic. So it's like the same character. Manny got moved over to Graal 2001, and he was the policeman. And I didn't really want a policeman, but like I just started shoving stupid ideas together at this point because like there was a point where like Stefan and Unix Mad were like threatening me, and they're like, we're going to sell your stuff, and if you don't like it, we're just going to ban you. So like when it came to the point that I started working on Graal 2001, we had this map that we auto generated. So like at this point we didn't even create the world. Like the auto generator just laid it out for us. Which is not what we did for these. Like these right here took insane. Like this was a lot of hand. I had to lay it by hand. This was a prototype. So, and it was like made by a child. So like, and you're talking about 1999 when there's very little like space on your computer and the technology sucks and your computers are slow. And so like none of this stuff was auto generated. There was not AI helping us. Like I had to do it all by hand and from my own imagination. So like Graal 2001 though, the map was auto generated, and it was so big that like it took me like hundreds of hours to like start fleshing stuff out, and it was like impossible to do too. So like I started like naming cities and creating all kinds of stuff for it. So like I took a bunch of stuff from our auto generated map, and like I started naming it, and um because this was my new game, this was my new world, so like I have to like there's no way I was going to release it where you could just like Stefan honestly wanted to like release it like that. They wanted to take everything I had so far and my bombies and just release it as is. And I was like, Stefan, I was like, I'm not releasing Graal 2001 empty. Are you fucking stupid? That's what I was thinking. I'm like, are you fucking stupid? What are you talking about? I am not. Like, people were already like harassing me and defaming me at that point. I'm like, I'm not going to fucking release this here with my name on it, with my Bomy characters, with nothing in it except a map that was, you know, that was drawn, and it was just auto generated. We didn't even make these levels. And so like I had to go through and start like making the world a world to the best of my ability as a child, spending hundreds of hours doing that. So like I had to start detailing stuff. I just started going through all the levels and trying to add details like bushes and little shrubs and little grass blades and flowers and like all kinds of stuff, and tweaking like cliff sides and making them more interesting because everything was so squared and blocky and stupid. I started like naming the different parts. So there was like the little coffee shop that you could get to through like the Bomy like canal. I started like I named the center of the map where there was like this the ocean had met like the sand, and I think I had added that area there. I don't think it was it wasn't even there at first. So I added kind of like this little shoreline area in the center of the map, and that ended up getting replaced by like the Bomy Moon at one point. And of course the Bommies are like, that is my character, it is my Destiny character, and it's mine. So like even the name Bomy, like Graal Bomy Moon is like that's my fucking game name. It's so weird that these grown men were like taking credit for this and taking my money. And there's like pictures of Unix Mad like selling my fucking game as if it's his, with marketing with my characters as if he did something. Unix Mad wasn't even around. You guys should know that Unix Mad was never around and never made anything. He was just like some dude who ran a server. And then after like they took the content, he's like, I see photos of him with like my employees that they're paying with my money over my game, with like advertisements of him standing at game conventions with like images that say Graal Online. It's got photos of my fucking stuff, like of my content and stuff that they're selling, and my Bomy Boppets and stuff everywhere behind him. And he didn't make any of it. He wasn't even there. Like Unix Mad wasn't. He was literally Unix Mad was never around. He never talked. He never did anything. He never made any games. He was just like where he is today. He's more involved today, and he's barely involved today, but he's more involved today than he ever was at this time period. Unix Mad was never around. He showed up as soon as they stole my games, and then he just started running around selling my stuff, claiming he had some part in it, and he didn't. Like that's the weirdest thing. Like we never even chatted through ICQ. He never made anything. He wasn't coding anything. He wasn't working on any of the games. He never made any games or any levels. He was just some random guy. And then one day, like I see him with photos of my stuff everywhere, all over online in France, and articles about him and his games. And he didn't make any of it. It was fucking bizarre. He wasn't even around. You guys, like, you don't understand. Like, he wasn't even around. He's just some random guy out of nowhere, like now, like living my life. Is exactly what it was. The only thing he did was he kept a server running, and that's it. He never even talked to anybody. He wasn't. And then one day all of a sudden he's in photos everywhere, and he's talking about. And now all of a sudden he's like Unix Mad in photos and everywhere, and he's at gaming conventions with photos of my fucking servers and games and stuff, and he's like selling it to people as if he created it. It was fucking weird, and it's disgusting. Sorry, I'm going on a rant. But anyways, I had to go through and start naming stuff. So like I named Harmonia. I named that after Harmony because I thought Harmony was a beautiful word. Just like Gravity and Destiny, I thought Destiny and Gravity were beautiful words. And Harmony I thought was beautiful. So I named a city called Harmonia. And then I named like Bomboria, and I named that after Stefan's nickname, which is Bomber. And so I created Bomboria and the police station and stuff. I created the police station, and then I had this little owl in there, and that's my owl. In fact, Stefan like yelled at me one point. He's like, why are he's like, quit putting like German in there. People are gonna think it's a German server. I was like using German words and things. So like hoot hoot Yule, which is like a German thing, and I was like, why, Stefan? I was like, you're from Germany. I thought you would appreciate the fact that I like German. He's like, no. And I was like, well, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And so anyways, because it's my stuff, you know. Oh, yeah, here, if you look at this, like close up, like this is from Antora, Mount Antora. You can literally see it says Ogatna, which is Antago backwards. And so like Mount Antora, I named after myself. Antora, you know, named after Antago. I named Boganera. I created Boganera. I created the Bogenjieber. I created like all the little cities. I had to go through and start creating like a bunch of little buildings and stuff, and I had to add detail into all kinds of random places. The amount of time I spent creating different Bomy skins so that people could have it. Like Stefan wanted to release this stuff in like its primitive form, and it was so stupid. I was like, no, dude. I was like, I'm not like, just stop. So, you know what I mean? Because like they're bullying me now. You think they're gonna like, what do you think they're gonna do? Like if I let you release my content, with my name on it, and this like they're never going. They're like my reputation will be done. So like I kept making more stuff, and then like that's when they're like telling me we're gonna buy your stuff, or not buy your stuff. They didn't buy it. Sell it for people to buy. And I was like, okay, well, aren't you gonna pay me for that? Which of course they refused to, and threatened me. So like you can even see some of these old headsets. These are like the characters from the Sky World. So this was a hyper flat. This was a Destiny Sky World character. The 1, 2, 3. I don't know where the other one is. The blue one, but the blue one you saw earlier. But these are all the headsets I made. This one I based off of like a skull that I found. I saw the side view of it on like one of Pachuca's websites, and he never made it. And it was like a year after he disappeared. So like I turned it into a headset because I always thought that it was a cute skull. Like the side view I always thought was cute. This was one of the Destiny Skyworld. This is one of the Destiny Skyworld characters. And that was also a Skyworld character. Another headset I made. I just have a folder of different graphics I made. So I made all of these. This one was a super popular one. People remade this 1,000 times. But this is my shaggy blonde boy hair. The Martian, too bad. The Martian was so cool. It's just like, because we were restricted to 32 by 32, the headset sucks. And you couldn't make, like the antennas were supposed to be taller. And so the head sits a little bit low and it's a little bit off. But the idea is there. Oh, I love that one. That was like one of my favorite ones. Yeah, so, oh yeah, I had fish and stuff. I was working on weird fish or things for Graal 2001. Here's the coffee from the coffee shop. Different bommies I had made. Let's see. This guy was supposed to be in there. He was part of Galactic Labs. He never, like, I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if they did much with him, but he ended up like, he was like in the pumpkin house. I created like this giant pumpkin house in the mountain. It took so long, dude. You guys have no idea how long. See, this was like actually skinned from a bird that Kirath had created. And then I found out he took that bird from another game. So like this needs to go away because that's not acceptable. But this, oh yeah, the alarm clock. That was my alarm clock I made. That must have been for Bruges Core or something. I don't know how it ended up in Bruges Core. Oh, because I was in Bruges Core, I probably gave it to him. I don't remember doing that though. And it's an ugly clock though. That's an ugly graphic. I don't know why it still exists. Let's see here. These guys, I put a decent amount of time into these ones. So this was the Bomy Council. So like in Mount Antora, God, I hate Graal 2001. Like a lot of that stuff I should have, like I had just like started fleshing a bunch of stuff out, and it like took so much time, dude. It just took so much time. And like it set a lot of trends. Like a lot of trends came from Graal 2001. Like the idea of like having houses that like when you're inside the house, you can see the walls of the house inside. Um Most people like the outdoor walls of the house, like that wasn't being done. Like that wasn't a normal thing. But like Graal 2001 normalized that. I don't remember if I just came up with the idea or like I saw it done at one point and like turned it into a thing. Um, but the Bomy Council, like the graphics are there, and there was supposed to be a bunch of cool stuff with the council. I really liked the council. I always thought that these were really cool. They're weird though. I don't know. Of all of them, I guess maybe this one and this one I like the most. I think that they're interesting. Um, and then like I had to create galactic labs, and then I created like this hole in the ground that you could get into. It was just so stupid and tedious, and a lot of that stuff like the energy should have like Graal, all the content from Graal 2001 should have been condensed and stuck into here into Glowtica. It should have been and also around it and stuff. So like Mountain Torah should probably be like in like cascading like mountainous regions around the Acropolis. Um, and the amount of time it took to start adding detail to those levels, it was just astronomical, you guys. It just took so long. And by the time like Graal 2001 released, um, they it's because they were just like itching to sell my stuff, and it was just like it was weird because it was never told up front that that's what was going to happen. And so like anyway, long story short, they released it, and like you can see like in the old mountains and stuff, like there's levels where like it looks like a square because you can see details in like one level, but then like surrounding it there's no details. So you can see like the grid of the levels like in the map because I didn't have time. How do you detail and add levels and quests a to hundreds of levels? It was hundreds of levels of a giant auto-generated map, and name everything and come up with characters and everything else on top of everything else you're doing in like a few months. So I spent like day and night working and like promoting it, and it just ended up being released really kind of janky. Um, I don't know that it was junky, but it was janky. Like it was really hodgepodge, and I don't think it was great. But you know, it had a dual star system, so like the dual star system I thought was really cool. So I created like the time system to go with it as well. So like the time system, I had 2 stars, and I'd got the concept from or the inspiration for it from Pitch Black with Vin Diesel. So like there was a binary star system that a planet had orbited, and I really loved the idea of the binary star system with the planets, and so like Graal 2001 was like a planet that orbited a binary star system. And I named the stars after Unix, Matt, and Stefan because at that time I thought that they were good people before everything started unfolding and before I became an adult and realized and just put all the pieces together and realized who and what the fuck these creeps are. But like I named the stars like Uniportum and Bomber K. So Uniportum and Bomber K were the 2 stars. One was red and the other was like normal. It was like yellow. And one was bigger than the other. I think Uniportum might have been the bigger star. And so like the calendar, it had longer days, or a longer calendar. I think they even had like different length of days, even maybe as well. But like when you were orbiting, I think it was Bomber K was the red star. When you were orbiting that, like the color of the nighttime and like the daytime was like reddish. It was like reddish tinted, and that's because you were orbiting the smaller red dwarf star. And then like when you were in the Bomber K or the Uniportum star, like it was like more like normal colored, like day and night. And when you were between the 2 stars, there was like a silver stone, a silver stun, which was um, you were between two stars, and so like the planet is heating up, and you could not get out of the water. You had to sit in the water, or else your player would like burn up and die. So like you were like the Graal 2001 was orbiting a dual star system, the time system, and then like the Graal lot. I introduced the Graal lot because I had saw the rupee system as useless. I remember like the rupees of Graal Classic at the time. They were using the Zelda rupees, and I had told Stefan, I was like, I'm gonna invent my own currency. I'm gonna invent a new currency for this game. And so, um, what I designed it to do was to be a limited currency, so that money had meaning, and that you couldn't get it just from bushes. You could like find you could get money from bushes, and when people died, like they wouldn't just like drop their Graal lots and people could like pick them up. Um, it was hard to get the money, and so like that's where like all the modern stuff like with farming and buying Graal lots and stuff that didn't that they took that from my game, um, from Graal 2001. And the reason I did that is because rupees were meaningless to me. Like at the time, like for years, it was for years, like rupees had no value. When you had rupees, they just simply didn't mean anything because you could get them everywhere. And you could find them in bushes, and you could find them like you could kill players, and they would drop their rupees, and you could like take the rupees, um, and then like the money would like disappear. And so, um, so yeah, um, so what I wanted to do was like create, and I created like this chunky ruby called the Graal lot, because like the original currency was called the Gelat, which was Gelat. Before that, it was called rupees, but then they renamed it to Gelat because they thought rupee was too similar to Zelda. I don't remember when that was. I think it might have been in 2000 when they renamed it to Gelat. I remember them renaming it because they were still trying to remove some references to Zelda um, because it was because it was Graal, and so like some remnants from Zelda were still there progressively over time that people thought were still a little too reminiscent. And so like the rupee was the Gelat. And so like or Galat or however you would pronounce it. And so the Graalat was my fucking ruby, and it was like a chunky ruby. And the way that you found them was like they were handled by like the NPC server. I told Stefan I want my my rupees, right? My Graalats, but my quote unquote rupees. I want my rupee system, my money system, to be handled by the server. And so, um, he made sure that like he edited the engine to make sure that this was doable. And so like we had set it up so that you couldn't just get a Graal lot anywhere. You couldn't like slash the swamp and find them. You couldn't slash bushes and collect them anymore. And when people died, you couldn't just collect their Graal lots. And like when Graal lots were dropped, the server kept track of them, and they stayed there until they were picked up again. And so I told him I want to make sure that like if a Graal lot appears somewhere for any reason or gets dropped somewhere, that it stays there until another person finds it. I was like, I want Graal lots to be rare, and I want them to mean something. I was like, I want my rubies to mean something, so that currency has a purpose in my game. And so I was already on track to making like things so much better and more functional. There's 1,000 things I would change in Graal today, and I was already going to change at the time. And the problem is Stefan and Unix Mad, they started taking my good ideas, and then they made this gross, ugly version of Graal after everything that they ripped off. But like, it's, one of the big things I started with was the time system was super cool. I don't know, like that, they should have kept the time system. That was so dope. The binary star system was really cool. And then like, being able to play as multiple characters and stuff, that needed to stay limited to multiple characters. Like it only, at most, there should have been like at least, two or three, and like they needed to be like restricted to like super different types of characters that were actually like well executed. And then I think that like Unix Mad saw an opportunity to just like start selling skins. Oh, you can play as this now. You can wear this skin, and that's really dumb. Because now the characters don't have any meaning. There's no point to it. So like, but the Graal lot system was so fucking dope. Like, you could collect the rupee or the. Again, they're not rupees. We had to like not use the. We weren't allowed to use the name rupees, because that's too similar to Zelda. So yeah, the Graal lot. I still call it rupee to this day because it was always originally rupee. But yeah, my ruby is it's the Graal lot. So yeah, so the Graal lot system. You couldn't just get them anywhere, and it seems to me that like what happened was they started inventing like these like jobs, like you had to like start farming for them and doing stupid stuff, which I found to be ugly. I thought it was a really bad idea. It was terrible. Like, I don't know why you're having kids farming in a game. Like, that's not adventurous to me. It just feels very modern and dystopian. Like, why are you putting kids to slave work to farm stupid stuff for no reason just so they can get Graal lots? I always thought that was a dumb thing that they did. It was after I left. But Stefan didn't know how else to make sure people could get Graal lots. He didn't know how else to do it because I designed the system and the Graal lot currency to be rare. And so like I had other ideas for how you would collect Graal lots. Like ideally it was not going to be laborious. Ideally they were going to be, I'm not going to give my ideas away, but anyway, long story short, yeah, so that kind of like was, where Graal 2001 kind of started. And there was a lot there, and like the Willow, there was supposed to be stuff with the Willow. I don't know, the Willow they never did much with that. But like I do remember the Willow. That was supposed to be a cool thing. And anyways, a lot of that stuff should have went into Destiny. Sorry, I'm having like a weird reaction. I'm having like a rash. I got like a fucking tattoo the other day. I think my immune system's overreacting right now. So anyways, and don't get tattoos if you haven't already, unless you spend many years thinking about it and planning for it, and you know that it's what you want. I had to get a cover up. I had to like black something out. But yeah, so Glowtica is, at least the outdoor aspect of it, a really, really, really old, generic, outdoor prototype. Some of the level files are still in the levels packs. But these are supposed to be blue. And a lot of the stuff like that you would see on Graal 2001 should have ended up in here. Well, all of it really, except for the weird stuff they started adding after I left. And this should have been completely adventurous and underwater, filled with lots more detail and tied into other levels and aspects of the world. And this should have just been one level of an Acropolis. So this was like supposed to be like an underwater ruins pool with cave systems that went down into the lower like prehistoric wilderness below. So this whole thing should have just been like a sunken city. But I wasn't able to add much to it. But the outdoor levels are there, and God, those took forever to make, dude. They took forever to make. Like, if you were around then, you would understand. Like, the time it took to design graphics and levels and scripts and market your stuff and do the outdoor levels. Because this was before we didn't have auto level generators like we do today. And then we didn't have all the scripts you have today. Like, there's a lot of scripts people can recycle today that didn't exist at the time. We had to make it from scratch. So, like, everything took, and there weren't resources. There wasn't AI. Everything you had to do, just like, there was no resources for it. You couldn't find resources online for it. G-Script had no, there wasn't a community around it. This was, like, the start of G-Script. This was the start of the engine. Everything had to be laid by hand. Everything you created took forever to fucking make, and it took forever to lay these outdoor levels, and they were laid by hand. They were 100% laid by hand, as was everything in Graal 2001 that was like fleshing out the auto-generated areas. So yeah, so I guess some of that's still in there, but it's just like the file names were named after Destiny. It's like Destiny G, which stands for Glowtica. But anyways, never got to do much with like officially launching it, but they're in there. They're completely in there.